Oh, hey, it is August 4th. This is episode number 44 of the MBA Show! Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. Today we're going to find out how someone paid for their business school with a single tweet. But first, on to some headlines.
Do some headlines, all right.
So the Forbes rankings are out this week.
Oh, God, I'm sick of rankings. Business school is a rankings fiasco. They're everywhere. Who won?
Harvard, of course Harvard won, but that's just something they do for calibration of the rankings.
Yeah, it's like if Harvard's not won, you know it's obviously wrong.
Well, unless it's Stanford. So you do 3 years on, then 1 year Stanford, then back to Harvard for the whole thing.
Otherwise, people start to get suspicious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's how you know it's a legit ranking system.
So what rankings are these? What's going on?
So this was the top school, and actually these are a little different. These rankings for Forbes are based entirely on how much money you earn 5 years out of business school.
I love that. Well, as you may know, salary is the best measure that we have today of measuring the value of a person. So just making the rankings off of that seems like a natural thing to do. Which
brings us to this week's business porn. How much are people making 5 years out of business school?
And what are they making at Harvard? $230,000.
That's 5 years after they graduate. Coming in at second with Wharton, making a slightly lower, but still pretty high, $225,000 a year.
And what are they making at Stanford?
At Stanford, a $20,000 drop. They're just scraping by.
Oh my God!
At a mere $205,000.
My gosh, they barely cleared $200,000.
And what's actually
why do they even get up in the morning?
So Stanford is actually the only school to have gone down. 2 years ago, the equivalent peer group at Stanford was actually making $225,000 a year, and the average Stanford salary 5 years out fell.
West Coast hippies. It's all startups over there.
Which brings us on to the tweet that won a fully paid for MBA.
All right. So this is from the Tippy School of Business?
This is the Tippy School of Business at University of Iowa. And what they did as part of their applications, applicants could submit a tweet as part of their applications. And they said anyone that submitted a tweet would have a chance at a free scholarship for their entire education.
So what was, I have to know, this is the winning tweet, full scholarship. What was the winning tweet?
The winning tweet was, globally minded, innovative, and driven, Tippy can sharpen.
That was beautiful.
No, it wasn't.
That is the shortest free MBA scholarship poem I've ever heard. And so for those of you who are more profit-minded and less poetry-minded, profit, we should point out that was actually not only was it a tweet, it was a haiku tweet.
Wait, globally minded.
Yes, the Miro is doing the universal symbol for reading a haiku here, which is counting syllables. I love how he actually, in his tweet, he actually had indicators for the number of syllables, you know, just in case a roughneck admissions officer wouldn't be able to detect a haiku tweet.
Yeah, it actually says like open parentheses, number 5, close parentheses, like actually in the tweet.
Well, you know, in business school, you can never take any chances. So this is actually good salesmanship.
That's fair.
Yeah, and so, you know.
So how many tweets were there overall? Like what was his competition like?
Oh, you know, you'd expect to have 40,000, 50,000, 58 tweets total.
1 out of 58 to get your entire business school education paid for. I like that. I like those odds. And in fact, I mean, these are applicants who took the entire GMAT, wrote an entire application essay, prepped for business school, and then didn't have the energy to get their act together to write an additional 140 characters.
And they didn't even have to tweet it. They just had to write a 140-character essay, right?
That's all they should. That's all they need to do.
MBAs are so conservative. So conservative. It's like, what are they afraid that they'll write this tweet and this will jeopardize your chances or something? It can't be. Wait, could it be laziness? I am 140 characters lazy. It's impossible.
Write a tweet. It's easy.
God, next year we should see at least 10 times that many. 100 times.
At least. Which brings us to our jargon for this week. The kind of people who take that time to write those tweets, they are
A players.
A players. So here's a term you may have heard a little bit before. You're going to hear a lot about it in business school and in consulting firms and in banks and in large companies and in anywhere that MBAs are employed.
Yes, and so an A player is going to be that person who drives your company. It's somebody that you can't do without, and you want to hire A players. Or as I like to think of them, bankers. Oh goodness, I have my summer attire on here. You probably can't even tell.
Which actually brings us into our business school tip of the week.
Which is hire A players.
In fact, there is a saying that you might have heard, which is A players hire other A players, but B players hire C players.
Yeah, and so the basis for this is that people that are really confident in their abilities, they hire other people who are smarter than them, right? But people who are mediocre they're afraid of being intellectually dominated by somebody, so they tend to hire people that they know that they're superior to, so they hire people worse than themselves. So you only need to have one B player, and it starts this downward spiral.
I myself haven't been working out lately, so I would say I'm actually employing a pair of A players these days.
Miro, in keeping with our tip of the week, I'm afraid we're going to have to let you go. We can only have A players on the show. I'm sorry. So next week it'll just be me.
You know, Tom,
I'm sure we'll be able to find somebody else.
You know, Tom, but you don't want any C players in an organization, so I'm afraid we're going to have to let you go.
It's just going to be a table here if we use this.
Well, before we get fired, what are you up to this weekend, Tom?
I am going to Six Flags. Makes 5 Flags look like a swan boat ride.
I begged him not to use that joke. I told him it was terrible.
What are you doing this weekend?
I'm doing a meditation workshop at Cambridge Insight Meditation.
All right.
I
begged him not to attend a meditation workshop.
I will be learning about the Buddha from an older Jewish man from Brooklyn who speaks with a heavy Brooklyn accent. It's great.
Stick around for our bonus content this week. We're going to be talking about how to hire A players, and we'll be looking at some specific examples about how really great companies in the Boston area have been doing this.
And remember to subscribe to us on iTunes or our newsletter at www.themba show.
Once again, I'm the real Tom Rose.
I'm Miro Kaz.
And you've been watching
The MBA Show.